Hello and welcome to FBR's December State of the Server address, or hangout, or whatever this thing is. For those of you who are not aware of, or not familiar with the concept, this is essentially just a quick rundown of some of last month's events, current happenings, and some of our plans for the future. This is entirely made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to help support the server, feel free to check out the link below. Be greatly appreciated. Today's agenda, we have some of last month's events, including some actual developments concerning the code thread attacks, as well as the emergency migrations. In current events, there don't seem to be any, so that's good, I guess. In plans for the future, again, we have Discord and overhauling the forums. We're also looking at the 1.2 update, and then we'll end everything out with open discussion, not closed discussion. So, let's get right into it with some of the code thread developments. I'm sure most of you are well aware of what the code thread attacks are, but for those of you who aren't, it's essentially a denial of service vulnerability affecting all versions of Starbound. Or at least all of the versions I could test, and that's all the way from Glad Giraffe to the current stable. It was discovered on the 21st of August when FBR was attacked, and it was fully reported in detail on the 25th of August. And it has been constantly used against FBR since late October. And it's not patched. In the stable branch, I'm sure most of you are aware that the 1.2 update is right around the corner. Down in the minor changes and bug fixes section of the changelog, there's one little thing all the way down at the bottom. Looks like we're finally going to be out of the water with the code thread attacks. They'll finally be fixed. Hopefully. Moving on, we have the emergency migrations, which were very fun. All of these issues started on the 7th during a routine system update, which completely broke LXC. LXC is the Linux container system. It allows administrators like myself to make these very neat little containers for our services. Helps drastically increase our security, makes everything much more portable and a bit more robust when it's used correctly. However, if LXC breaks, all of our services break. And that's what happened. So, there wasn't a very good way for me to fix this. There was a chance that reverting a recent kernel update and manually fixing a whole bunch of stuff would have gotten LXC working again, but A, given the limitations imposed upon us by our server host, that would have been very dangerous, and B, LXC would have still been very flaky. So it seemed that the best option was to rush and decontainerize everything and then move it all to our development server, which occurred on the 9th. And then once that was done, I spent the better part of half of a week rebuilding our production server from the ground up. And then I was able to transfer everything back on the 14th. So this is obviously something that we need to avoid in the future. To do so, I have moved us to a fully supported operating system. What we were running on before was supported enough to work. It just made LXC kind of flaky, which is obviously something we don't really want. So now that we're on a fully supported operating system, LXC should be much more stable, and that should be quite a bit better. I'm also looking to set up a staging environment where I can test these updates before applying them to production. I could do something similar in our development environment, but it really wasn't a proper staging environment. So once I have the ability to set up a staging environment, I will be using it. I'm also going to be keeping an emergency fallback instance available, probably on our development server, just so that if something severe happens again, I can just reroute all of our traffic to that emergency instance, and we can use that until everything else is fixed. On the bright side, all of this, everything breaking, actually allowed me to fix a lot of things, including our auxiliary containers. Before all of this happened, I couldn't make more auxiliary containers. Now I can, and that's really great. Our production server is nice and fresh again, nice and reinstalled, and all of our services have been slimmed down, quite significantly in some instances. And the web server has been made significantly more secure. And it allowed me to test many of the kind of more obscure features of star control, like some of our panic systems and mod pack reverting systems, all that weird stuff that's hard to test otherwise. Most of it worked quite well, and what didn't worked it kind of failed in an acceptable manner. So that was quite good. Moving on to the current events, there don't seem to be any. There's kind of this feeling of dread that I'm forgetting something, but that's pretty usual, so I think there are legitimately no notable current events. So we'll move on to our plans for the future. We have setting up Discord again, and overhauling the forums again. I know this has been on here for 2 or 3 months in a row now, and I must apologize for the fact that it's taking so long, but I simply haven't been able to find the time to get this all moving. So hopefully that can happen this month, if not sometime next afterwards. But I am trying quite hard to get this done. We've also got the 1.2 update, and this might be a bit interesting. The fact that we use the workshop for our mods kind of forces us to update immediately. Even if the server doesn't update immediately, even if it keeps all of its mods held back and all of that, all of our clients will update immediately. We could disable that, but that would be a case where every single person has to disable it on their own. And the sad fact of the matter is that the majority of the server's population will not do this. So effectively, we have to update when an update comes in. However, Starry Pi probably won't like that. In its current state, it is simply not compatible with 1.2 at all. Unless one of the wrapper's developers can update it before 1.2 drops, we may have to figure out some sort of temporary solution. But we kind of just have to wait and see what comes on that front. Also, terraformers are terrifying. There must have been zero thought towards large multiplayer servers when those were implemented. They're just they're not good for multiplayer servers. I think that about wraps it up. So we'll move into some open discussion. We've got Aerodem here today. If they have anything they'd like to bring up, I'd be happy to go over it, but if not, I guess we'll close it up. Alright. I'll just repeat this for everyone on YouTube. As for current events, there was a situation where we made the universe pruning happen. That is a good point. We did make universe pruning a thing. I made that a kind of free tidbit on our Patreon page if you'd like to check that out. But essentially, Eridim found out that our universe.chunks file is essentially useless, which is pretty significant as it's a good 16 or 17 gigabytes worth of data that we can just delete. So our backup speeds kind of increased 8 times, which was quite nice. And as for the terraformers, we could create a forced mod to deal with it to go with the temporary solution. Yeah, I think that will be the best course of option, is to create a mod that is forced server side that just disables terraformers entirely. It's not ideal. It would be nice if we could use it in some ways, but it's just we don't have the facilities to do that. We have to work with what we can. So yeah. I guess that's about it. I guess I'll wrap everything up then. So, thank you for joining us today. Oh, one more thing. Yeah, that is a good point. If some of the developers for Starry Pi 3K can work together and kind of make a new plugin that deals with terraformers, we could possibly lock it to a server rank, and that would be ideal. Hopefully that can happen. Really hope so, but I'm not entirely sure that will happen. Because I think the main developer for Starry Pi 3K has been missing for the past 2 months. 1.2 might bring him back, but I'm not exactly hopeful. Well, I'm hopeful, but I don't think it'll really happen. Yeah, we do fork from Meteor's GitHub repository, so hopefully they'll do something about it. But if not, as you say, we can use a forced mod to just disable terraformers entirely. Is there anything else you'd like to cover, or is that we good to wrap up? Alright, yeah, I'll be looking into those as soon as I have the time. Hopefully we can get that sorted out. So, yeah, I guess that's it. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Eridim, for joining me in this this month's State of the Server. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them either in the comment section below or on our forums. All of the links to the subjects covered today should be in the description. That should do it. I hope you found this at least moderately informative, and have fun on the server.